the level of knowledge about music industry structure and IP rights in the creative communities is very, very low. The last number I hear is $1 billion per year that is unidentified. The only ones that could have changed that are the people in the studio that made everything.
Hi, I'm Hazel Savage, and this time our guest is Niclas Molinder. He is the CEO of Session, a company which he founded with Max Martin and Bjorn of ABBA. He's also a songwriter of 20 years' experience, having previously worked with Lady Gaga and Miley Cyrus. In this episode, we'll talk about artist education and intellectual property, a UN-backed creator initiative, and our favourite Swedish letter. For the benefit of people new to meeting you for the first time, Niclas, how do you like to introduce yourself? What do you tell people?
I always say that I'm a songwriter and music producer, even though I've actually not been doing it so much the last 10 years because I've been working more with music rights and make sure that creators getting credited and paid. But yeah, still, I'm a songwriter and music producer. That's what I say.
Exactly. And if that's where you started, that's what feels most honest and true.
Yeah, and I do it again now. I have a studio at home and I'm actually creating music now. A few really cool projects. So I'm more songwriter and producer now than a very long time. So,
I like it. So going back to when you first started and you were that songwriter and music producer, how did you get into that, and what was the driver for you? Was it did you want to be a rock star?
Yeah,
same.
I always liked music, but I didn't go to any music school. I never learned to play an instrument. If you put a score sheet in front of me, I have no idea. It's just black dots, so I don't know. But I always had a passion for music. When I got 13, I had the opportunity to get into the music lesson room where all the instruments were, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the format school has never ever been for me, because I have hard time to focus sitting in a group in benches and just listen to my grades have never been that good.
Yeah.
But it was as soon as it comes to music, home.
Yeah.
So in this in my school we had a big grand piano in a kind of auditorium, and there was a stage, and the one teacher that really picked up that this lost boy, he needs to find something.
Yeah.
So he let me be in that auditorium. So I was playing and learned to play the piano. And every time I did that, because piano was on stage, in my head I was performing. So I dreamt of being an artist. That was like how it started.
Yeah. And so was piano kind of your first instrument?
Yes.
And
no,
then,
actually not. The drums was my first really, and
I was not expecting you to say drums.
Yeah, drums was the first, but then piano became my main instrument.
Nice. And so did the sort of the being in the studio from a production perspective, did that come from wanting to produce your own music and your own records to start with?
So yeah, I mean, I am old, 50.
Don't worry, so am I.
because when this happened, when I was when I ended high school there, and it was time to try to do this for real, I was part of a band, and I was the one in the band that always, I didn't only play the music. I made sure that our rehearsal room was equipped with everything. I was like all the details. But when I realized, okay, if we are going to break it and make our music heard in the world, we need to record it.
Yeah.
And back then, there was no computers where you just can bring a studio and a computer and then...
Oh, you didn't just have a DAW on your phone that you could just... that's a shame.
I'm so old, so we needed... Actually, my first recording was made on a 2-inch 24-channel tape recorder.
Right.
So, you needed a studio, and we didn't have that money to pay for a studio.
Well, it was expensive as well.
Super expensive. So I more or less forced myself into a studio as an intern.
Right.
And those guys were like, oh, he is a pain in the... So they said, okay, we need to paint the walls and have someone to clean. So they more or less used me for those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I realized, I said to myself, okay, I was not really happy with all that, cleaning and painting. I wanted to be in the studio.
Yeah.
But I said, oh, wow, I changed one thing, though. I'm here. I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
I'm doing the wrong things. But there's just one person on the planet that can change that. Moi.
Yeah.
So I just started to sneak in the studio when the paint was drying on the wall, and just listen. And I immediately realized that I understood how signals flow through this complex, mess of cables, console and outboard effects. And you plug the guitar there and it goes like that. So really short thereafter, the engineer said, we need a reverb on the snare drum. And I literally flew up and just patched in a reverb. And he like, oh man, do you know how to do this? And that, it turned me into an engineer. And I really then understood, this is how it is on this side.
Yeah.
I don't want to be an artist anymore. I want to be in this environment, record, creating, writing the music.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out that was the place.
I had a bit of a sort of a similar thing. I started as an artist. I was a guitarist in an all-girl punk band. And we would never really had any success.
Okay.
And I was in my early 20s. But then I started in on the artist management, and then I started in on like the industry side of it. And then I've much more quickly, when I was in tech, started to like see that I could build upon the things that I was doing. And you try X, Y, and Z happens.
Yeah.
Whereas I felt like as an artist, when I tried X, Y, Z, never happened.
Okay.
And so that's how I got as well. I sort of, you almost, when you start to see a little bit of progress and success, it sort of encourages you as well, doesn't it?
Totally. And that is, I recommend that all the time, especially to young up and coming music creators, that try all the different roles, because to me it was like, wow, a new world, like is this? And I remember when you get into that studio environment, you start working, you lose time, and it's like it's so much fun. And I remember that feeling that when we were done mixing a song, it was done, go home, and 6 a.m, and you meet people on their way to work, and I was done, with a good song, and then go home. And I literally loved that alternative lifestyle.
The hours of the night owl. And I wonder as well, because I'm doing an event next week at a university in the UK, and they actually emailed me this week and said, name a bunch of artists you've worked with. And I was like, I don't work with artists. I work with technology. And I feel like I've like deliberately put myself in a world where I'm not meeting celebrities, and I'm not, because I don't really get any enjoyment out of that. I get enjoyment out of the technology and the innovation and that side of things. So I'm not going to have any interesting stories to tell these poor folks at the university who probably think I do something very glamorous.
But hey, technology is really interesting.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
It depends who's interviewing, right? But I must pivot slightly here as well, though, because I do know with Session, which is where Session has the partnership with SoundCloud, which we love. Yeah. But I do know that you do this, and the two people you work with are Max Martin and Bjorn from ABBA. So we are getting into celebrity territory here. So how did you three come together? What's the story there?
So when I came up with the idea behind Session, it was when me and my songwriter partner, we were pretty successful back then, and we couldn't really keep up delivering all the songs that were requested from us. So we did as many others do. We started a publishing company, and we became a production house. Yeah. So, but between me and my partner, I'm the more organized one. I hope he's not going to see this now, but so I'm a bit more organized maybe, and so I took.
Is your business partner also Swedish?
Yeah.
Well, you're known for organisation, so I'm surprised. He is probably also very organised. You're just more organised.
Oh, let's talk about that. And I was a bit naive at the time. I thought I could run a publishing company with my right hand and still be in the studio,
right?
Because I didn't have all the right knowledge how the industry works. But when that happened, when we started that publishing company, I realized, oh my God, the music industry have messed it up for itself. Like, so complicated.
Yeah.
And as a publisher then, representing other songwriters, it was up to me then to make sure that the so-called registration gets right. The process that really is the so important process, and that everything is right. Because if it's wrong there from the beginning, the songwriters and me as a publisher don't get anything out of the system. Zero. So,
and this is talking about who wrote the song, who worked on it, who was involved.
Yeah. And now, from now on, I'm going to be super picky on terminology.
Correct
yes.
way.
So when we talk about song, It's always a combination of a sound recording and an underlying musical work.
Yeah.
Combination of those is a song. But when we talk about the recording side, we use sound recording, and we talk about what songwriters do, they do a musical work. That's important to me because that causes so much confusion when we use so many different terms.
Yeah, song, track, music, whatever.
Beat, whatever. Yeah, so it's so important. And I don't expect songwriters to walk out of a songwriting session and say, oh, we wrote a great musical work today. Of course, use the term song, but you need to understand what it means and where your contribution, where it goes. Because if you don't understand that, you will never get paid because that's your rights. And So with this publishing company, and we were 6 songwriters.
Okay.
The only thing I needed as a publisher was the correct information about who did what, where, and when.
Yeah.
Period. That's what I needed. And I didn't get that. And one time, 2 songwriters from our team came back from New York and they wrote a song with a very generic title. I don't remember. Let's say I Love You, but it was something different. But they wrote it together with DJ Pete.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, do we have anything more information? No, we bumped into this great guy, DJ Pete. We wrote a song, it was not planned, but it's a great song. How am I as a publisher I cannot do registrations. Do you have a split?
I'm really worried that if I Google DJ Pete, we're never going to find this person. We're never going to find him.
No. So I then said to myself, I need a tool for my songwriters.
Yeah.
So when they're out in the world, I need to know who they worked with.
Yeah.
And I need to know their full legal names.
Yes.
And then we get into the next part here, which is the identifiers.
Yes.
The 5 numbers that controls the whole music industry internationally. It's standard, everyone uses them. So the names and the information about who did what, where, and when needs to be transferred to those identifiers. And why? Yes, because we cannot use names. My full legal name includes a letter that you don't have on your keyboard because I'm from Sweden and we have funny letters, 3.
Is it the one with the circle over?
Yeah, it is actually, because my second name is Åke, so that's an A with a circle on top of it.
That's my favourite Swedish letter.
And then we have an A with 2 dots, and then we have an O with 2 dots.
Right.
So, and people can have same names, and letters are different from different alphabets around the world. So we need to transfer it into numbers that everyone can understand. And if those 5 numbers are not assigned, linked, and matched correctly before the first commercial release of the sound recording, we lose control. And the data then, that is the data that is available and linked to this sound recording, that's going to be spread out to thousands of different databases around the world. And the data that's missing is not going to follow.
Yeah.
And since there's so many thousands of databases around the world, it's impossible to update them all.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So now we need to start guessing where we should update, where we think there's money.
Yeah.
So now in doing things afterwards. And that is a very, very bad structure for keeping control of and please, creators, now don't kill me because I'm calling a song a product.
Yeah.
We put a product to the market,
and
we can. Some creators don't like to call their songs products, but if we put something to the market and want to get paid for it, I see it as a product. I don't know any other product that has so bad control over the owner structure and where the money and the revenue is coming in from the use of it. So, and the identifiers is the only way of solving that. So, my songwriters from my publishing company, they were, forced to, it was mandatory for them. Use this now, and it was an early version of Session.
Right.
Yeah. And it was just a tool because they have their phones in their hands all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't expect them to change behavior. They should create music exactly as they normally do. I need their attention 5 to 10 seconds after every songwriting or recording session to just...
And this is how a lot of the best products are born, out of a need and a use case of the person who first builds it for themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best ways to go. You you saw an issue that you had yourself, you rolled it out, and then you quite rightly identified, I bet we're not the only people with this challenge.
Exactly. And I was thinking, if we have this problem with 5, 6 songwriters, what about the big ones that represent hundreds of songwriters?
Right.
So, and it applies also on performers, people that are doing the different type of contributions on the sound recording. And the challenge here is that today, in today's way of creating music, an individual person most of the time have multiple roles. You can both be a songwriter and a performer, which means that your different contributions need to go different directions, either to the musical work side or the sound recording side, and be registered in different databases on different CMOs. So yeah, and I don't want the creators to have to worry about this. If they just use one source and put in what they did, and then we can take care of the rest for them. Just make sure that it gets right. But we need to know it from them, because the creators are the only ones that knows the truth about who did what, where, and when.
Yeah.
There's not a machine in the world that can do that.
So did we ever find out what sort of percentage split DJ Pete was on?
I think, I'm guessing now, but I think DJ Pete took 40.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should have done a 33-way split.
I was going to say 33.3 recurring.
No, but he took 40. And
Well, it keeps the numbers nice and round, doesn't it?
I know, yeah.
So he's
because if you do a 3-way split between 3, there's always who's going to get the 4, because it's going to be 33.33, 30.33, and then 33.34.
Yeah.
And who's going to get the 4?
Who gets that extra little... That's DJ Pete, I think.
Maybe
I'm gonna call that. I'm gonna call that the DJ Pete.
And number. I should have. It's pretty easy to call it. And imagine if a song gets a big hit, like a real hit, and generates money. How much is that 0.1%?
Exactly, and this is so true in a lot of music technology as well, which is it's not a problem until it's successful.
No, I know.
And at that point, it's too late.
It's too late.
It's like I remember when I was raising money for my company, and our pre-seed round, it was 100 grand for 10% of the business, which when people look at me now, they go, 10%, that's so high. And I was like, yeah, but it was 10% of fuck all when I took it. Did I have a business partner? Did I have an idea? Did I have a business? So, and as I say, when you're writing the song, it probably starts as this could be something that never goes anywhere and never gets heard, or it could be the next, Ed Sheeran Shape of You. And if you don't capture it at that point, it's too late.
You're so right, because if you take the moment and discuss with your dear songwriter colleagues after when you wrote a new musical work, discuss the split then, because one, it's fresh in your head. You remember who did what and can make a fair split. And second, if you wait and Ed Sheeran, Beyonce or Rihanna is going to record a song, now people are going to get greedy. So
people do. Human nature.
The most fair way of doing it is to do it when it happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are platforms. Session is one, but there are more than tools like this than Session. But I think that if you have a hard time, because I know when you just did it in the studio, you just wrote the great musical work and you're dancing in the studio, it's a vibe killer to bring up. Hey, can I get 40%? So use tools and do it afterwards, where you don't have to look in each other's eyes and feel greedy, but make sure that you discuss the split as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Everyone benefits from that.
And actually, that's good. It's this kind of like nudge economics, where if it's a simple tool, it's part of the workflow. It doesn't then have to become, and as a British person, we hate that talking about money, confrontational. That's the last thing any British person wants to do.
This information, I mean, it's so important for songwriters to understand that. Let's say if I work as a waiter at a restaurant, would I go there without leaving my social security number, my bank account number, and fill in a time card when I go home after my shift? If I don't do that, I don't get my salary. To make sure that the identifiers get right and talk about the split, that is exactly the same if you want to have songwriting as your profession. So it's so important to think of it from a business perspective. Absolutely. So how long has Session been going for now? Oh, long time.
Right.
So we started, I think it's a bit over 10 years ago since the embryo for it came out. And it's been developing over time. And it hurts me to say, actually, but one of the biggest challenges we provide, Session and Session-like tools, there are others. We provide them in a freemium model, so it's completely free to use it. So the creators cannot say that, I cannot afford it, because it's free. A frustration is that we creators, that we scream, shout and complain that we don't get credited and paid, but we do very little, and we are very, we are not open for trying new solutions.
Yep.
So the biggest challenge for session-like apps is that we have so hard time to get the creators to adopt it and start using it.
Right.
That's super hard. So when now you and I have been talking about it from more what is actually there for, the data, the identifiers.
Yeah.
But when we pitch session to creators, we say it's a collaboration tool. We have totally transformed it into a collaboration tool and more or less focused on features that helps creators with the pain points that we know they have during the creation process. So Session provides a voice memo recorder, so you can always find your memo recordings under a song umbrella.
Yep.
So because I know so many, including myself, if you use any voice memo recorder, you never find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So we have that. We have lyrics. We have all audio files, including stems, and everyone involved, the split sheet, all under a song umbrella. So, and we call that a collaboration tool. It's a perfect collaboration tool. And we have also worked really hard with the DAWs. So we are on the DAWs because that's where everything happens.
Yeah.
And when someone walks into a studio, you just have to scan a QR code on the screen and boom, everything is solved for you.
And are you platform agnostic as well with all the DAWs, most of them?
Yeah. So the Session Studio desktop version is a small software that you install on the computer, and it automatically puts itself on top of the DAW. We have tried different ways of doing this.
Yeah.
I must highlight Avid and Pro Tools because they've been amazing with us.
Right.
They have been trying so much, different ways of doing this.
Yeah.
Plugin would have been one option, that you do a plugin.
Right, of course, yeah.
But then if you insert something on the audio path, you don't know, is this going to affect the sound? Which channel should a metadata app be installed to?
Right.
So we decided that we don't think that that's the right option.
Yeah.
So now Session looks like a plugin. That's the same feeling, but we float on top. We are not actually in the audio path.
Right.
So we float on top, and you just have to click on it and it opens up.
Yeah.
And when you close down, it becomes a little floating badge that floats around. You can put it wherever you want.
Got it. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about Clip as well.
Yeah.
So this is a sort of a newer initiative.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about Clip and what's the background here.
Yeah. So before we do that, I'm first going to talk about the challenge with both.
Yeah.
Actually, I've considered having two physical hats, one that says Session and one that says Clip, because it's completely separated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Clip was the idea for Clip was born out of the work I've done with Session.
Right.
But Clip is not a promotion tool for Session. It's totally separated. And Clip is education for creators. So what I found out was like, okay, as I said before, it's so hard to get creators to adopt it. And one reason for that is that the level of knowledge about music industry structure and IP rights in the creative communities is very, very low.
Well, it's not really why a lot of us musicians get into it, is it? It's not the thing that gets you excited when you're learning the piano in the auditorium.
But it is what puts the money in your pocket.
That is true.
Yeah,
that
so
is true.
you don't need to understand everything, but you need to understand a bit of it.
Yeah.
So I came up also with an idea of a scalable digital awareness education platform.
Yeah.
That was by creators for creators, a place where you can go and find what you're looking for. There's tons of great content out there already.
Okay.
So much. If you just use any, just Google for search for music rights, or you get so much, but it's too much. It's so hard to find. And another thing, it's not always legally correct. So you don't get the full correct answer to your question.
Yeah.
And if you read two articles, it can be contradictional, like, it's confusing for me, and I know this inside out. And so if someone that don't know so much, it gets super confusing.
Of course.
And secondly, we have an insane inconsistent terminology. It's insane.
Sounds like that's the root of a lot of the issues as well, isn't it?
Song, for example.
Yeah.
We talked about that. What is a song? Yeah, it's musical work and a sound recording. And there's so many, in the music industry, it's filled with acronyms. We have so many acronyms, so you get lost.
Yeah.
So based on that, I wanted to do an education platform that is the right place to go. It's with all information legally confirmed and all, correct. Yeah. So I said to Max and Björn, like, I think we should get into the education space. And they were like, you are insane. Let's not do
I feel like, did they say this to you quite a lot?
Yeah.
You're the ideas person.
Yeah. So, but we started a foundation. I managed to get him into this. So we started a foundation in Sweden called Music Rights Awareness Foundation, because we wanted to have the education project completely separate. We are the same three people behind both initiatives, but they are completely different. So now, how do you do an education platform? Yeah, first you talk to the industry, and everyone was super supportive, because the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've heard so much, in discussions in the music industry about the need of educating creators, because the inflow of data is too bad, and what it causes is the unidentified money, the so-called black box money.
Well, I wonder as well, because our industry's changed a little, hasn't it, in the last 10 years? And I think about that shift from like physical retail, where maybe you're selling an album of 10 songs for £10. And they probably don't really care too much which song's getting, is it £1 a song, or no, it's just £10 for the whole album and it's got a barcode on, that's super easy. But we've shifted into this digital realm where everything is streaming and fractional, and, there are more songwriters than ever on every individual work. So I think our industry's changed, and so probably this need has kind of crept up on us to have this understanding.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and the amount of songs released on a daily basis, insane, and it's increasing. So, and if you don't have the right knowledge about the profession you have, I mean, of course, it's you need to have that. So everyone we spoke to supported the idea of an education platform.
Yep.
But since the music industry is very political, we had two options.
Really?
Either we do it ourselves completely, or we find a neutral partner that we can do this with.
Right.
And it turned out that neutral partner is the UN.
Oh.
Yes. So I managed to...
When you said it, we were political. I didn't know we were this political.
Hey, I'm going to tell you a fun story. I'm going to get back to that. But so it turned out to be the UN. We partnered with the UN agency WIPO.
Okay.
It stands for World Intellectual Property Organization.
Yep.
Based in Geneva. They're the agency for IP rights in the UN. And they thought that this was a really good idea, and they did something that they normally don't do due to UN policies working together with the private sector. They're very controlled. But we've done something called a public-private partnership. So we started a consortium together that's called WIPO for Creators, with the aim of building this education platform. We, of course, need involvement from the music industry, since all content needs to be legally approved.
Yep.
So I managed also to get all the 14 international trade bodies. And for those who don't know what a trade body is, every music company and organization on a national level are mostly member of a trade body locally in the country.
Yeah.
And so labels belongs to IFBI, for example, is one. Publishers to ICMP or IMPMF. And there's, many
we love those acronyms.
Yeah.
We love those
but
acronyms.
It's a really good structure, and those trade bodies are working for the best for their members.
Yes.
So then there is an international level where IFBI have the international version of it, and there's 14 of them. It's actually 12, but we don't have to go into the details about it. But we have 14 very important trade organizations on our WIPO for Creators Advisory Board.
Right.
So for the first time ever, we were around the table, the whole entire music industry, working together for developing education content for the creators that is fully legally approved and correct.
Yeah.
And we also made not complete, but we did a new glossary. So we have a consistent terminology.
Got it.
That is easy to understand. So when we talk about what songwriters do, we always say musical work. And as soon as musical work is mentioned, you can click on it and you get an explanation what it is. So that's what I've been doing last year. And believe me, and now I was 2 weeks ago down in Brussels and did a presentation for the EU Parliament about this. There I'm sitting in one of those auditoriums, where you see, in EU, and they look the same in the UN environment.
I've seen them on the telly.
Yeah. And I was sitting there with some politicians and I was thinking like, oh my God, where did it go wrong? I dreamt of becoming a songwriter and producer. And here, I'm a politician.
Yeah. Did you dress up smart for your day in Brussels? No, you went
and the
in
other
authentic.
ones, I noticed that everyone else that were about to say stuff, they had scripts. They have everything written down.
Yeah.
I had more loose style. I didn't have any paper, and I wave arms and stuff.
Who's this hippie Swedish guy who's coming here with his rock and roll attitude?
So I mean, I really, it is fun to learn this world.
Yeah,
but
it's a whole different world,
but
isn't it?
Have I relearned what bureaucracy means? Yes, I have.
Right.
It's a completely different level.
Yeah.
But when you get on the inside, even if it's the UN and WIPO, very controlled organizations, the people there are amazing. The team I work with on WIPO, without them, we wouldn't have, been able to do this. Because November 17th last year, we launched Clip, which is a WIPO-funded project that is free for every music creator in the whole world. And it's available in English now, but we're translating it to 5 more languages.
Fantastic.
So it will be all 6 official UN languages.
Yep.
Free for every creator. The one place with the right information on how the music industry works and everything you need to know.
Well, we're definitely going to include all these links in the information about with this podcast.
The web address is goclip.org and spread the word. And it's everyone's.
I will.
Yeah, it's yours, it's mine, it's everyone's because it's publicly funded up by WIPO.
And so I wanted to follow up there when you were talking about when you got these 14 industry bodies around the table and everyone was agreed and on the same page that yes, we need more education. This benefits everybody. Why is it so difficult to get our industry round the table in most circumstances? What's wrong with our industry here?
Do you know how much time I spent thinking about it? Exactly. No, and it is frustrating because it's sometimes, I see it so clear that, okay, there are tons of problems downstream. When we have the combination of a sound recording and a musical work out released on the market. But if we don't have those 5 identifiers, as I said, assigned, linked, and matched before the first commercial release, of the only identifier that works really, no, I should not say only work, they work, but the one that is works the best, I would say, is the ISRC, the International Standard Recording Code.
Got it.
That goes with the sound recording. And why? Yeah, because it's mandatory. You need it. You cannot release a sound recording to Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Amazon or any other streaming service without an ISRC.
Yeah.
The other 4, we don't need them to do the release.
Yeah.
There we lose control.
Yeah.
And so what I am really wanted to do with Session and with other things I'm doing now, actually that is not launched yet, but we're working on those things, is to make sure that the 5 identifiers can be at least assigned.
Yeah.
They don't need to be 100% correct, but today we missed the link to the sound from the sound recording to the musical work. So the songwriters and publishers and the CMOs don't get the money because we don't even find them.
Yeah.
And that causes a big amount. We hear different numbers. The last number I hear is $1 billion per year.
Yeah.
That is unidentified.
Yeah.
Lies in black box, as some people say, or unidentified.
Yeah.
And the industry don't pay out because they don't know.
Yeah.
And we cannot say that it's bad intentions but because we don't know.
Yeah.
And the only ones that could have changed that are the people in the studio that made everything, because they could have said, I did that and this is my identifier.
I often try and explain our industry to people from other industries. If they've, I had an investor who came from a logistics background and another that came from a change management background and another from deep tech. And they just thought I was talking nonsense a lot of the time because, when I'd have to explain how sales worked in our industry or how relationships are built and how things get done. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to those outside of our world often,
You're right.
does it?
I have also one of those experiences. I have a really good friend working at MasterCard, and I did the classic napkin story.
Okay.
I explained the music industry on a napkin during a dinner.
Right.
And I'm like, here, musical work, sound recording, and he spreads out, and we have like 100,000 per day. Crazy, we cannot keep track of this. And he looked at me like, Niclas, we at MasterCard, we do billions of transactions, like billions, and everything is right every time.
To the millisecond.
But the fun thing is when he said that, it was like, oh, yeah. It is not so complicated.
Yeah.
But what is complicated is that so many involved parties, when we should need to work more together.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, and as I understand, because everyone looks after their own clients and their own part of it, but the music industry is very siloed. Mm-hmm. So people care about what's in their silo. But unfortunately, that is not possible because we need to collaborate between the silos to get the numbers right so the money can flow more seamless.
Yeah.
So in many cases, especially for musical works and sound recordings that generates a lot of money,
yes,
it works because those who created that will get paid. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot of manual work, and it takes a long time.
It does.
So what we should ask us, if I get a pound, how much was that pound 24, 36 months ago at the original source? Was it 5 pounds? Was it 3 pounds? Was it 15 pounds?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
As a songwriter, I have no idea. I get my pound. If I want to dive into the royalty statements, I can do, but I guarantee that the majority of all songwriters that open the statements
There's a lot of people who are in the music world deliberately to stay away from statements like that. That's our industry's challenge. But I was laughing to myself a little bit there, picturing what it would be like if MasterCard ran more like the music industry. So, you use a MasterCard and it takes 24 months for the money to go through. Nobody really knows the actual amount. Nobody's tracking it. No. They're not getting any of that. I mean, people do look at us like we're slightly insane in this industry, don't they?
And I mean, as you said before, that distribution has changed from physical now to digital. So we know every second someone press play on a sound recording somewhere in the world. We know exactly when it happens.
Yeah.
So it should be more easy to track all the information, and
it should.
I mean, there's so much development in the industry, and it is a positive, great will, especially from the most instances I know that to really change things and make it better for the creators. But I have always, my heart is with the creators because without them, we don't have an industry anymore. We don't have
Well, without actual musicians and songs and music and musical works, it's just a lot of us business people sitting around with not a lot to do, is it?
Yeah.
So it's and at the heart of it, it's people's connection to music and why people love music so much.
Now I was just waiting for you to drop the 2 letters that everyone's talking about all the time.
I'm not going to lie.
You're kidding me.
What have I just written there? Because as you were talking, I went, I should ask you an AI question because we've just bumped right up against that technical innovation edge in our discussion of where the market's going, the volume of music, the next logical step. And only if you want to talk about it. I built an AI business. I talk about this day in, day out, to the point where I don't want to derail every conversation into AI. But as someone with a background as a songwriter, as somebody who's focused on splits, when you look at what's happening in our industry today, and for anyone who's listening to this podcast in the future, we're right in the middle of the UMG TikTok standoff and one of the main arguments is the use of AI on these platforms. What's your take? How are you feeling about the whole thing?
I mean, first I must say that we have seen different types of technologies come and ago, I mean, how many years did we talk about blockchain in the music industry? It
Yeah.
was like forever. And then there was an NFT, a short NFT period. It was super short.
Oh, it's great fun though.
Yeah, great fun though. And now we have AI. But I must say that, and I love technology, and the technology changes how we not only do music, how we live our lives. So yes, I am completely supporting for use of AI, but we need to divide it into two parts if we stay in music. Music that is made with or without tools by humans, and music that is made completely by machines.
Completely, yeah.
And we know that is if we start on the side with music or songs and that are made completely by machines, is actually not really made only by machines, because the machines learn from something.
Exactly.
And so that's an area where it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the future. What I'm guessing, though, is that when we see the European AI Act and what's going on in the US, to be able to copyright something, it needs to be a human involvement.
Right.
So I don't think that kind of music that is fully machine generated will be it will dilute the system with thousands and thousands of songs per minute, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I do think as well, I've not met a single musician, songwriter, or even person like myself who's in the music tech side of things. None of us think that you should be able to use something without the right to use it.
No.
I think maybe big tech feels a little that way, and I can see why they would push for that. But I think most of us go, for work done and for work used, compensation is required.
yeah.
Like that's how our industry works. Whether it's from, chucking a few coins in the busker's hat on the street,
yeah.
or whether it's the fractional payment on a streaming service. And we are a diverse industry in that, I've worked in music streaming for about 10 years. And I remember back when I worked at Pandora, I had a meeting with a label one morning. It was like a 9 a.m., which at a conference is an early start. And the whole meeting was just them telling me how much they hated music streaming, how they thought it was going to be the death of the industry, how dare I work for such a company. And I remember finding it slightly amusing, but it was completely acceptable 10 years ago to hate music streaming. Can you imagine if a label exec said that today?
No, yeah. But but that is exactly, technologies comes and goes, and some gets really successful and stays. And I mean, AI will, what I'm so really blown away is, I mean, when we had blockchain, no one really knew what it was, because everyone used the term, but AI now, we see what it does and we can use it.
Yeah.
So if we go over to the other side, amazing as a music creator to use tools, and I use them, and they are brilliant.
Yeah.
And I don't know if especially producers that listening to us now agree with me when I'm saying that one of the toughest part of when you get like a halfway in, intro, verse, chorus, from there to finish, to get to the point where you can say it's mixed, it's done.
Yeah.
It takes so much effort, and don't give up and start on a new beat, or and tools today are brilliant because they can help you on the way. And just vocals, I mean, I tried a new tool recently where I more or less play the melody on the keyboard.
Oh yeah.
Write the lyrics, and it comes out a voice, and it's not like a computer-generated type of voice. It's someone singing for me.
Yeah.
And if I change the word, and the machines, and wow.
Yeah.
That was super impressive.
Yeah.
So
even for throwing demos together, that's super exciting.
The threat though will be maybe that background singers and other performers that maybe can be challenged if the quality gets so good on these machines, so you can use it in productions.
Yeah.
Is that right or wrong? I don't judge. I mean, it's up to each and one that creates the music if you want the humans to do it.
And we're sort of figuring it out as we go, aren't we?
Yes.
There's not a lot of precedence for a lot of these things, but I find the tools fascinating. Source separation, AI spatial mastering, like these tools are phenomenal. Like even this podcast right now, we'll use an AI tool to generate the auto captioning. so that we can have an instant transcription, and it'll handle my accent, it'll handle your accent, it'll be 99.9% accurate, and somebody isn't going to have to sit there and type it out. Or what would have probably happened, we won't bother. No, it's too much work. Yeah. So it's improving accessibility, and and as I say, it's a 2-second job for an AI.
I did a promo video where I talk about, that was actually a session, 35-second long video. And we used one of those tools where we translate it into different languages.
Oh.
So I speak French, Japanese, Korean, and my mouth is moving exactly right to what I'm saying.
Wow.
And I mean, accent-wise, I don't understand the language, but it sounds cool, you know.
Convinced me. Actually, I did one of those AI avatar videos of me speaking, and I sent it to my mum and sister, and they couldn't tell it wasn't me.
For real? Oh.
So, and then I told them to watch it a second time, and I told them a few things to look for, and they were like, oh yeah, like it hadn't quite, it given me an English accent, but not the English accent I have, which again, I know that's a very weird thing for English people to say, but like, for example, I pronounce it AI, whereas in the video it was AI. So slightly different. Oh, okay. So there's just these little things, these little things. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a final question.
Yeah.
And I've gone full circle. And obviously, I'm delighted to chat with you today. You're from Sweden.
Yes.
My business partner, Aaron, is Swedish.
Okay.
We know Daniel Ek, he's over there. We've got Epidemic Sound. We've got Soundtrack Your Brand. Your pals, Max Martin and Bjorn. What is going on in Sweden, and why are you all so into music?
It's something in the water. No, that question comes up, you know.
I know, but I'm genuinely trying to understand it.
But, you know, one thing, though, I mean, and the funny thing here is, if we start with music, okay, can it be something that affects people from one country to be good at melodies, for example? A few things that we hear, I mean, first, I think why we're so good at melodies, that our language is pretty melodic.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it has something to do with that.
Yeah.
We have a government that is very, very supportive to these kind of things. So we have a free music school. So any kid in Sweden can, for free, play any instruments from when you're a child.
Okay, that's amazing.
That's amazing. So I think a combination of all those things.
Yeah.
But then we have the tech thing that is not related actually to the music creation at all.
Yeah.
So, but what I think is that success feeds success.
Right.
So if you see someone success, we see this within sports, for example, you know, when a country gets a good tennis player or a skier or whatever, you know, then a lot of kids want to start doing that. Yeah. And after some years, we have a number of successful. And I think that's the same in music.
Yeah.
And from the tech perspective, I mean, Sweden as a small country, I mean, we have Spotify, we have Klarna, you know, we have iSettle, we have big tech companies, unicorns and from a small country like Sweden. So but I think that the success feeds success thing is what.
Nice. Yeah. I shall keep digging in on this. Yeah. And my co-founder had a theory that it was also possibly something to do with the weather. Being a very cold and dark country, when y'all are inside quite a lot, then you're finding, you know, working on a computer or playing an instrument, you're not like the Australians, you're not down the beach every day. So
but, you know, half of the year we have sunshine almost 24 hours a day. So that goes for the winter time.
Okay, well, this is a theory disproven. But if I ever decide to go into academia, I'm doing a PhD. And
count me in. I really would like to find the answer.
My research is going to be what is going on in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Niclas.
Thank you so much. Can I just add one thing for everyone that listen? Even if, though, when we talk about what we've been talking about, if you're a creator out there, and I mean, don't see it as a negative thing. It's sometimes these discussions becomes negative and like, oh, it never works. It's just problems. But see the positive things. I mean, it's easier than ever to make music and get your music out.
Yep.
So see it from the positive side. It's a lovely industry to be in, but we need to collaborate and talk about the challenges we have to be able to make it even better. So I just wanted to add that.
No, I love that. And I think it's people like yourself and the types of companies and initiatives you're building that I think is adding a lot of value. And I get more excited than ever about the younger generation coming through and the talent they have, the talent we see on SoundCloud every day, these brand new artists. So there's a lot to be hopeful about.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.